I'm going to start talking while he's getting the presentation ready. So I got involved with the Eco-Industrial Park program 2-3 years ago. Yeah. And my first task was to do an evaluation of some of the parks against the international framework. And then you have a couple of benchmarks. Oh, there's my presentation. Anyway, you have a couple of benchmarks that you evaluate the parks against. And we evaluated East London IDZ and Putaricaba were two of the parks. We have Mr. Tefo Matla here from Putaricaba today. He's going to talk after lunch, so please come back after lunch. Very interesting. And we did this evaluation against these benchmarks, and then where the parks do not meet the benchmarks, you identify opportunities. And then from these opportunities, we identified priority opportunities on which feasibility studies have been done. And this is what I'm talking about today. Okay, so we're getting the guys online. So we did the pre-feasibilities in 2 industrial parks. The one is East London IDZ. There were 3 pre-feasibilities done. And then in Putaricaba is close to Clarence. Very nice place to stay, I must say. And we did 6 pre-feasibility opportunities there. And, oh, can I use it?
Just want to check.
So the 3 pre-feasibility opportunities at East London were all renewable opportunities. So the first one was to look at a 50 megawatt solar PV plant outside of the boundary of the East London IDZ. It's a bit further away from the IDZ, so it's not within the precinct of the IDZ. Then they started, well, tenants started approaching the IDZ and saying to them, but we need renewables in our mix. And then we said, okay, let's expand this pre-feasibility to look at solar rooftop PV. And that's within the park. Now, the challenge in the park is that the park rents out the buildings to the tenants, and then the question is who owns those buildings if you put a solar PV on top of the roof. And so we've done the pre-feasibility on that as well. And we also looked at solar PV ground-mounted installations within the park, because there are a lot of open spaces within the park. So there are a lot of open spaces in the park where they can actually put ground-mounted installations in as well. So I'm going to skip a few slides because Henry has covered these. So in the East London Industrial Development Zone, like I said, we looked at the 50 megawatt solar farm outside the park. We looked at the solar PV rooftop installations on leased out buildings in the park. 90% of the power used in the East London IDZ is from leased out buildings. The other 10% is privately owned buildings, so that was not included. And then ground mounted installations inside the park. Then on top of that, we also looked at a 1.8 megawatt wind farm outside the park. The reason why it's so low, it's basically to curtail energy during load shedding for Eskom. And then there, we also looked at 2 1 megawatt battery storage systems inside the EL IDZ boundary. So on the solar PV installations, like I said, the tenant companies want to lower their carbon footprint. The park itself wants to lower its carbon footprint. And there's also pressure on the tenants to reduce the amount of fossil-based energy in the energy mix. Now, most of the companies in the East London IDZ are automotive component manufacturers, and they are pressured by companies such as BMW and Mercedes-Benz to reduce their carbon footprint. The EL IDZ uses about 50 gigawatt hours per annum, so if the 50 megawatt solar plant is set up, it can produce 150% of this requirement. But they can also sell this energy to the top 100 users, and they're already starting to have, looking at MOUs with Buffalo City Municipality to sell some of this electricity if it goes ahead. The 21.8 megawatt rooftop solar installations on leased out buildings can produce 66% of this requirement, and the ground mounted installations can produce 24%. Now, if you look at the, what did I do now? Oh, there we go, I'm back. So if you look at the solar rooftop installations and the ground-mounted installations, they account for plus minus 90% of the energy requirement within the park. And that is the amount that the lease-out buildings use. Okay, we did not consider nighttime usage or battery storage in this sum, but if you just put the solar rooftops on and the ground-mounted inside the park, which is much more secure than an outside solar PV farm, which needs a lot of security, you can produce up to 90% of the total park requirement. Carbon dioxide reduction, obvious, 78,000 tons for the megawatt, so 50 megawatt solar farm, 34,000 tons per annum for the rooftops, 12,500 tons for the 8 megawatts. Your solar yield in East London is about 17%, 1/7, and these assumptions were based on that. Okay, I'm not going to go through the whole capital expenditure, operational expenditure calculations that we've done. If you have questions on that, you can ask me. We used estimates from the CSR Energy Center. You'll see here that the simple payback for all these installations is 6 to 7 years. It happens when I press it too long. Okay. So the simple payback for these are 6 to 7 years, which is the going rate nowadays. The amount of jobs that you can create with with solar PV jobs that you can create is about 50 construction jobs with the solar PV rooftops, and 2 jobs for the first megawatt installed, and then 1 job for every megawatt installed further. So you're looking at about 20 odd permanent jobs for the solar PV to maintain it. That's the rooftop solar PV. And then your large installations like the 50 megawatt solar farm can produce up to 500 construction jobs and then up to 25 permanent jobs. So a business case has already been prepared for the solar rooftop PV. 2 megawatt of the 8 megawatt ground-mounted installations are awaiting permission to release tenders to the market. When we did this study, there was an issue on government procurement processes. So I don't know if that's been solved yet. Don't know. And then ground-mounted installations could be installed by 2023, and others by the end of 2023. So this process is living and it's going ahead. The 1.8 megawatt wind farm in Berlin, so that's also outside the boundary. It's also to meet security needs. You all know what load shedding is. If you're from overseas and you don't know what load shedding is, please come and talk to me. Okay, I won't share my next thought. And then also for reduced carbon footprint requirements and to assist Eskom in their curtailment or load reduction or demand side management program. So 5 to 6 gigawatt hours energy can produce. That's about 12% of the requirement. Carbon emissions, about 6,000 tons that can be reduced. 62 construction jobs, 15 permanent jobs, if this goes ahead. Payback is a bit longer on the wind farm. It's 10 to 11 years. And the likelihood of implementation, again, is very high. So most of these projects are likely to go ahead because they're already engaging with a potential investor. And if funding is secured, they could start building it by end 2023. The battery storage systems, this is very interesting. I learned a lot from this research. They're looking at 1 megawatt battery storage systems that will increase the quality and reliability of supply. The battery storage systems have 4 hours standby time each, and they run on a 75% efficiency, or they can run for 3 hours. You don't want to deplete your batteries, and they could therefore supply 6 megawatt hours per day, and the estate services alone use 4 to 5 megawatt hours per day. And the whole reason behind the battery storage system is actually just a monetary saving, because they call it peak shaving. So the peak shaving savings can be 2.6 million per year for the IDZ. So that is basically you charge your batteries when it's off-peak times, and you use your batteries at peak times. So you reduce the load of the national grid. So you help Eskom and you help the municipalities, and you save money in the process. Yes. So an interesting thing on technology of the batteries, you get your lithium-ion batteries and you get your redox flow vanadium type batteries. These are new types of battery systems. Both of them can cost up to 140 million rand over a couple of years, but if you compare the two, the redox flow systems last longer, for 20 to 25 years, compared to the lithium-ion batteries. The operational expenditure of the lithium-ion batteries are also higher than the vanadium redox batteries because you need to replace cells. So this one becomes more expensive. The operational costs are similar, but this one starts getting more expensive every 8 years when you need to replace cells in the lithium-ion batteries. So there's a very technical levelized cost of energy that needs to be calculated for these systems that hasn't been done for this pre-feasibility, but it will be done as the next phase goes ahead. Again, implementation likelihood very high. They're already talking to funders to support this. And then also there's a battery manufacturer of redox flow technology setting up in the IDZ currently. So win-win again for the IDZ. And it's a pity that Chris is not here. I hope you're listening, Chris, online, because you are really a champion for the eco-industrial parks. Okay, so now all these pre-feasibilities have been done for the IDZ. They're all energy related. And incidentally, I listened to one of the roundtable discussions, and I heard Peter Klein, Dr. Peter Klein used to be at the CSIR Energy Center. He's resigned now. The new person or project manager there is Jan-Hendrik Grobler. And this is where I got this information from. So incidentally, they were looking at going into the parks and working out the best energy system for industrial parks. So their approach is to support energy infrastructure projects in industrial parks and in special economic zones, and they recommend that it's a structured energy planning process. Now the reason for it, it has to be a structured process because to ensure that you get the right energy infrastructure and investments in an optimal manner, because you can lose a lot of money if it doesn't work out, if you invest in too much and if you invest in the wrong mix. And step one in this framework is the development of an energy master plan. So you'll probably get the slides. Okay, so the CSIR's approach from an, sorry, I get so excited about these things, I just press the button too long. The CSIR's approach from energy planning to successful project implementation has 5 steps. Phase 1 is your planning and project development phase. And then phase 2 is your implementation and operational phase. So part of phase 1, step 1, is your energy master plan, where you look at what mix of technologies are you going to use. Is there wind in the area? Is there what does the solar radiance look like in the area? Is there biogas available in the area? What type of conventional energy do you have available? Is the grid, is there capacity in the grid to take on the renewables? Things like that. They look at the timeline of the development, the financing requirements, as well as emissions and the impact on energy security. Carbon emissions, what is your carbon footprint going to look like in this energy mix? It provides a guidance on technologies to pursue on a project basis. It provides guidance on the timing of investments, and it can be frequently updated. I'm not going to go through all the benefits of the energy master plans. But long term, it's going to benefit the industrial park because it's been planned in an intellectual way instead of just putting up solar panels. So what they look at is your ultimate energy mix. So are you going to use renewables? Are you going to use conventional? Are you going to look at energy storage, like we said now, like the peak shaving? What is the power demand? Obviously, a park's energy production is going to be based on what they need and what they're going to need in the future. What are the system constraints? What are the grid tariffs? That's the wheeling tariff agreements that you have to have with your municipality. I only know about Cape Town having an agreement currently. So that needs to be sorted out. It can take a long time. What are the technology costs? Is there new technology available? Are you not just going to use imported technology like in the IDZ? There's already new technology available in the IDZ. They can source it locally. They don't have to ship it all the way from wherever. So we're looking at the energy mix. We're looking at the operations. What do they need? They're looking at the project economics, and they're looking at the emissions as well. So just a few examples. The Energy Centre has successfully developed an energy master plan for Atlantis Special Economic Zone. They are in the process of developing one for Richards Bay Industrial Development Zone. And then through engagements with the CSR Energy Centre and the NCPC South Africa, they're looking at the 3 industrial parks that's part of the Global Eco-Industrial Park Program. And that's the East London IDZ, Futari-Chaba Industrial Park, which is managed by the Free State Development Corporation, and then also Econdustria, which is managed by MEGA, or the Mpumalanga Economic Development Agency. Okay, so that's on energy, and that's on the East London IDZ, and I'm checking lunch. Okay. Is everybody okay with 5 minutes more? Okay. Will you survive? Okay, cool. Okay. So Futari-Chaba, we looked at 6 different pre-feasibilities. They were not all this technical as the East London IDZ pre-feasibilities. The first one is solar PV installations. Mr. Stefan Matlar will talk a bit more about that. Just an overview. 2 sites were identified for solar PV installations. Our recommendation is not to do this as just yet, but to let the Energy Centre come in and look at the best mix for Futari-Chaba. So I'm not going to talk a lot about the energy now. So the next one is a dedicated area for informal trading. Okay, so for each of these pre-feasibilities, I'm just going to have a green word that's going to say how it fits in to an eco-industrial park program. Because informal trading, I mean, where does that fit into an eco-industrial park? So the rationale here, here's just a picture. This is examples from Paris, where they put up container parks for hawkers. And the idea is to put up dedicated container and store areas for 50 hawkers in Futari-Chaba. And that includes basic services like energy, water, waste removal, etc. How it fits into an eco-industrial park? The environment is going to be cleaner. Okay. So they also get protection from weather, because these poor guys, I mean, we were sitting in Futari-Chaba, we're still talking, and whoosh, here comes the rain. I went jogging, and whoosh, here comes the rain. Okay. So they're protected against crime, so nobody steals their products. And there's also benefits from government programs like health standards, training services, etc. And there's buy-in from the municipality. There's buy-in from Destia, that's the Department of Small Business Development, Tourism and Environmental Affairs. And there's also buy-in from CEDO, which is the Small Enterprise Development Agency. So, for your stomach's sake, I won't go into the CapEx and OpEx. So rent will be charged, but the rental fees will have to be agreed with the Hawkers Association. There's a Hawkers Association that works with the hawkers and works with the Free State Development Corporation. And FTC, I'm going to talk about FTC for the rest of the slides. That's the Free State Development Corporation, which manages Futari-Chaba. They will take the lead in developing this area, and it could start as early as the second quarter of 2023. They're already in discussions with companies like Coca-Cola that wants to invest. And the other one, which was the cell phone company, I want to mention one of the cell phone companies. Yeah. Hey? MTN. That's already looking at investing. So there are already private investments that are looking at this, supporting the FTC, so that the hawkers don't have to pay that much rent. Then there's a training center. That's the next one. Okay, I've got 6 minutes left. So they want to look at training 500 people per year in textile and clothing and also furniture manufacturing. The potential beneficiaries are unemployed people in the area. There are a lot of unemployed people in the area. Where it fits into an eco-industrial park, the green here, the training will deliver more efficient use of machinery and equipment, okay, which means you're going to have less water, less waste, less energy used. There will be job creation in the park, and it will increase competitiveness inside the park. There's an open factory available already. An application, has the application been sent to CETA? Yes, application has been sent to the CETA. So it just depends on the financial year, whether it's going to go this year or next year. So the process is going, highly likely that it will happen. The next one that we looked at is industry committees. Industry committees need to talk to the FTC on what are the challenges in the park. How are we going to address these challenges? What other companies are not complying? Who is not paying their taxes or paying their bills or whatever? And these industry committees feed back to the FTC. How it fits in, challenges that the FTC experiences are energy security, water security, waste management. That's how it fits into an eco-industrial park. So as you can see, these pre-feasibilities are not necessarily always how are we going to reduce water consumption, okay? It looks at the bigger picture. Get the people from the park to talk to you about how are we going to fix this. This is a very interesting one. Yeah, I wish I could keep you busy for half an hour on this one. Okay, so there's this laundry that collects fiber waste from textile companies. And this waste is sorted, baled, and mostly exported to China and India. And then that waste, the textile waste, is unpicked, so they make yarns from the textile waste. And it's imported back to South Africa at 30 Rand per kilogram. So they get 1.54 Rand per kilogram to give it to them. It's imported back at 30 Rand per kilogram. If they do that themselves, they can make 12.50 Rand a kilogram. Now that's less than half of what they pay for it currently. Okay, the business case is fantastic. So they can collect 650 tons of fabric waste. This has been confirmed that they can collect this, and 130 jobs can be created with doing this. Business case, simple payback, 1 month. Okay? Doesn't make sense not to do this, right? So these guys, they just need 4 million Rand. Okay? So they're going to spend 12.7 million Rand per annum on operational expenditure, but their revenue is going to be 94 million Rand per year. So we are in the process of talking to the Industrial Development Corporation about this. And then also the tool that Henry mentioned, there are 18 other funding options that these guys can look at from the Access to Finance tool in the Global Eco-Industrial Park program. The laundry will take the lead, and if finance is secured, they can't get financing from the banks. So they can't lend money because they have nothing to, they can't borrow money because they have nothing to borrow it against, okay? But yeah, if they can do it, they can create so many jobs, and it can just be a win-win. So, 2 minutes. Okay, I'm not going to show the slides of the last 2 minutes. Concern in Putarechaba is the wastewater treatment plant is not operational, and I read an article in Engineering News and that there's 1.7 billion Rand available for Maluti Upfong. So the park needs to find out where is that money going, because I think it should go to the park first, okay, because it's giving so many jobs. So we did an analysis of a wastewater treatment plant on a build, own, operate model. So it's basically going to be that the municipality pays for the water treatment plant to be operational. Another thing is rainwater harvesting. That's also a no-brainer, okay? We were sitting at a meeting and the water was off on that particular day. And it was pouring, okay? So if we could just direct that water through a system into the toilet system or into the washing basin system, that's a very low capital investment opportunity within Putarechaba. So this is what the Eco-Industrial Park Program does, the Global Eco-Industrial Park Program. We do an analysis against the international framework. You see where there are gaps within this framework. You identify opportunities, you prioritize opportunities, and you get it done. So, yeah, thank you for being part of this.